Welcome to Vivid Talk Live. I'm your host, Gwen Witherspoon. My camera is acting up, so we had to send it out. So I'm going to have to read from my teleprompter, and you're going to see it. But I just want to let you know that Vivid Talk is all about your personal and professional development, and I want to help you learn a fresh way of thinking and doing for all you were designed to build. And I'm streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, and you can watch the stream from those channels and on my website at gwenwitherspoon.com. And replays are available on the website and on IGTV and Twitter. So make sure you follow your favorite channels so you will receive notifications when I go live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Last week, I started off by asking you a question. And so this week, I'm going to do the same thing tonight. What would make your life better? Introduce yourself in the comments and say hi to Katrina and Ron. They're helping me monitor the comments, and I want to thank you so much for joining. Please share the link to invite your friends, and I will be right back. This is so funny. I'm going to have to get used to my new setup here. We're creatures of habit. It's so easy to fall into a cycle. But make sure you are following at Gwen Fuchsias on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also on Periscope. And then Gwen Witherspoon Coach on YouTube. And then I wanted to point out too. Oops, I got a graphic up here. Let's do that later. So my website, gwenwitherspoon.com, is where you get all the information about me, about the show. You will have an opportunity to watch live if you're not already. See, look, it's going live from the website. And then these lovely icons over here, the Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, Instagram, you can click and get direct links to those channels if you'd like. And then you will also see other replays. I'll post those here. So you can go, of course, to any of these channels and watch the replays, or you can go there. If you want to contact me, simply go to contact and send me a message. And then also, if you have any questions or comments as we are going along, please drop them in the comments, and I will do my best to kind of look out and watch. But I have my trusty comrades watching out for me as well. Listen, so last week was really interesting, and I think I asked the question, like, what problem were you born to solve? What problem are you born to solve? And answering that question is significant, because most of the time, if you are dissatisfied with your life, you are dissatisfied because you are not really fulfilling your purpose. And oftentimes, even if you're not 100% sure of what that purpose is, I think dissatisfaction can actually point you in the right direction. I recommend I have recommended the Discover Your God-Given Gifts book by Don and Katie Fortune. And the Discover Your God-Given Gifts book is based on the premise that there are 3 types of gifts that are discussed in the Bible. And one of those is what most people call the motivational gifts. And motivational gifts, I like that phrase. There's some people call them personality gifts. I've heard other things, but I like motivational gifts because it speaks to your core motivation. What is the thing on the inside of you that makes you move? And there are seven gifts that are discussed. There are 100 questions for each test, and at the end of each test there's 5 questions, and they're like the negative things or the challenges that go along with each personality or with each gift. And I love those because sometimes if a person has difficulty identifying positive qualities about themselves, understanding the negative things, the challenges that you face, what makes you angry, what really sets you off, that oftentimes can point you toward your gift, your purpose, what you care about, what you need to be spending your time on. And so if you are dissatisfied in any area, I think, of course, in this show, I've been talking about vision and the fact that we have to have vision in every area of life. And so the Bible says that without vision, people perish. They cast off restraint. So if there's an area of your life that is perishing, if there's an area of your life that you're unhappy with, that is the area that you need vision, right? And we talked last week that vision is really a revelation. You need to get a revelation of the problem you were born to solve. So if you understand what makes you angry, then you might have the first clue as to what problem you were born to solve. You may have, and so once you get that revelation, that gives life meaning and purpose. So oftentimes, again, if you are dissatisfied, and that's why I always say, what would make your life better? And sometimes we just don't slow down long enough to ask ourselves the question and then to answer it honestly. What would make your life better? Is it more money? Do you want to be thinner? Right? In some cases, that means, do you want to be healthier? Do you want to have better relationships? I remember when I was single. I was single for a very long time. I did not get married for the first time until I was in my 40s, and I think I was 43, and that felt like an eternity. And when it finally happened, though, right now I'm happy. And that didn't last very long because that first marriage was tragic and terrible. I had to get through that to get to the one I have now. But while I was single, I wasted a lot of time wanting to have something else that I didn't have. right? I kept thinking, oh, my life will be better when I have this relationship. And of course, when I had got the wrong relationship, and my life was much worse, like tragic in comparison. And so I think sometimes we're not clear about what it is. We don't take the time to dig deep and really determine, what is it that I am really dissatisfied with. If you need your life to be better, hey Renee, if you need your life to be better, what what specifically do you feel like is missing? What do you feel like? Um, what is the real problem? I spent so much time longing for something I thought I needed, something that I thought was really missing from my life. And I probably didn't spend enough time really focusing on the things that I could control and focus on what was going on in my life at the time, right? And so when you ask yourself, what would make my life better, you you also have to look at, I think you need to look internally, right? We need to look inside and figure out what's going on within us, as opposed to all these external things. Because think about it, more money is external because it's a physical thing. Like, either you have it or you don't have it. And of course, money affords us the opportunity to do things that we couldn't do before. And it also gives us the opportunity to have things, right? Everybody around us is making and and building and creating things, and they are designed specifically to get our money, right? And when you can't get those things, oftentimes we're taking those things and we are using those to make us feel good about ourselves. We are using things to fill the gaps in our own souls, right? And we're using those things to what is it to what is it when you we're using those things to soothe ourselves, right? We're using those things to make us, to take our focus off of what we feel like isn't right with our lives and with us. And the more things you get, the emptier you get. And so it's, oh, hey Kavaris. So what is it? And think about it. If you feel like you are missing something, how medicate? There we go. That's what I was looking for. How do we self-medicate? Right? I've discovered that I used to say that I'm not a worrier, right? And I'm not a worrier in the traditional sense, like most people. If my son went out in high school, I would not sit up at night worrying about what he was doing and how if he was going to make it back. I was confident that when he left, he was going to be safe and that he was going to come back home. I didn't spend my time that way, and I don't worry about if I hear a noise. Like if I'm doing something, I hear a sudden noise outside. I'm not worried about. My husband does that, but I'm not worried about who's outside, what's happening, what's going on. I hear a pop. I'm like, okay. I mean, I might not even hear it because I'm so focused on what it is I'm doing. But what I realized is before I have an event, before I have something that's important to me, something that I have to do, like before I do this show, all of a sudden I will create activities for myself. I'll create more projects. I'll make more lists. I'll figure out some new thing that I need to start just before I'm supposed to do something else, like important, right? I'll stay up all night before a big event because I think I have to do all these things just to get everything in order. When in reality, what I'm doing is I'm worrying. That's how I bide my time and how I soothe myself, right? And I did a course last year called Vivid Branding, which I'll be offering again. But I did the Vivid Branding course, and what I watched I had my students in the class. I watched them from week to week not finish their assignments. And I've also been coaching people now for at least a decade, like focused on coaching other entrepreneurs. And when you talk, when all of us coaches, when we talk to each other, the one thing we talk about is, why do people pay you money to help them do something, and then they don't follow through on the very thing they said they wanted to do? And I just kind of was chalking it up as was an occupational hazard. But what I realized last year when I was doing this class was that essentially what we're doing is we're procrastinating. So if you say you want to write a business plan and you never get the business plan done, and because you just cannot find the time, and you say over and over, you know what, I can't. My week just fell apart, right? I love to say how strung out I am, right? My week just fell apart. Well, what I found is that the week didn't necessarily fall apart. What we do is we procrastinate. And I read an article about procrastination being like a psychological condition, but we procrastinate because we are soothing ourselves by doing the thing that we feel like we can control. So it's easier to go and like do the yard, right? It's easier to go cut down a tree than it is to go sit down and face that business plan or that book or that thing. I'm naming all the stuff I need to do. The book, it's easier to do something else than other than that. And what we do is we will soothe ourselves. So you could also self-medicate. The easy one is food. That nervous eating, that just putting something in your mouth just out of habit. And what we're doing, just like babies, babies have to learn how to suck their thumb to calm themselves down. That's what we're doing as adults. We're learning how to soothe ourselves and to cover up whatever it is we think we are missing, when we think we are not enough, when we think we don't have enough. So when you answer the question, what would make your life better? I want you to look deep inside and just say, and identify, do you feel like you are enough? Do you feel like you have enough? Do you feel like you are doing enough? So living life is really about what you have. It's about who you are, what you have, and what you do. And we have to learn how to identify honestly exactly where we are. Because most of us, we want things to be different, but we never take the time to identify exactly how. And so I looked, when I was thinking about this, I'm all about action. What is it can you do? What is it, what do you need to do to take the next step? And if you are making incremental improvements and you're moving forward, that's success. And what we often want is some big giant breakthrough, right? We want some major shift. When my son, I raised him, I was a single mom. I raised Aaron by myself for 18 years, and with my family, my parents and my siblings and everybody helped, but I was the only parent. And so we always had a raggedy car. Always. The classic. I had two of them that stick out in my brain. One was a yellow Maverick, and it had a rust hole on the front hood, and it didn't have heat. So in the winter, it didn't like to start. We were living in Alaska. It did not like to start in the morning because it was too cold. So I either had to put my mother's perfectly good car out in the snow and put my car in the garage if I knew I had to get out early in the morning, or it had to sit until noon. Just cracked me up thinking about it. It had to sit until noon in order for it to be warm enough for the engine to actually start. So this car was horrible. Then, and I remember seeing my cute little chunky baby all wrapped up in all this stuff, and he's sitting back there, and those little cheeks are red, and you could see his breath, and it was miserable because it was just it was tragic every time I had to get in that car. Then I had a Subaru station wagon. In the Subaru station wagon, the right door had rusted shut, and so in order for my son, to get in the car in the front seat in the passenger side, he had to go through the back, come through the middle, and jump on the other side. Then we finally got this brand new car, and I can't remember it. It was a Nissan, and I remember when we drove it off the lot. It was nighttime, and we went down the inlet in Alaska, and we played like our favorite music. And my son took the seat and just moved it back. He laid the seat all the way back, and he said, "God, it's so good." It was wonderful. But I tell you that because we think we need this big jump. So take the station wagon to the Nissan really truly was a giant leap. But what I soon discovered was I wasn't quite prepared, right? I was used to having a piece of junk car, right? So you can treat it a certain way. Like it doesn't have to be washed as often. It just doesn't, right? I didn't have to, especially since they were older vehicles. I didn't have to do the same kind of maintenance on it. So when I got this new car, I realized that it was kind of out of my league, even though it wasn't like a brand new car. It was new to me, and it was used, but it was, I mean, decades older, or decades newer than my last car. And so oftentimes what we want is a big giant leap. We want some huge change, but what you have to understand that you got to be ready when the change comes. So if you want a big change, that means you want a big change in your outside circumstances, then you got to be ready, or really be making a big change on the inside so that you can withstand, so that you can actually handle that next level, right? Now, and there's no way for us to know exactly what it's going to be like when we have that better life that we're looking for, when we have that better situation. But if you want a better job, if you want to make more money, you have to increase your skills. You at least have to be ready to step into another level, right? If you instead of you being passed up for promotions over and over, and you want the promotion, oftentimes you got to do the job long before you get it, because you have to demonstrate at a certain level that you actually can handle that new level. You can handle the work, right? And so I guess what I'm hinting at is there's some stuff on the inside of us that we need to be doing so that we can be ready for the life that we want. I think the first thing you have to do is you have to decide what you need to change. What areas in your life need to grow so that you can get to the thing that you really want. I've been building, as I've told you before, I've been building had a vision to have an agency of my own since my first advertising agency job back in Alaska, right when I got out of school. I keep thinking it was the 90s, but got out of school in the 80s with my first advertising job. And it's been over 30 years that I've had this vision, and I've been working towards it. But then probably within the last 2 years, it became painfully obvious to me that I kept saying that I wanted something that I wasn't really fully preparing myself for. And so when you ask yourself what would make your life better, you have to think about what steps do I need to take to be ready? And I want to warn you, first of all, you're enough. You are ready already because you've been destined for this thing. Whatever is in your heart, oftentimes that's divine. And what happens is we allow life and circumstances and people and all these external things that have nothing to do with our full and true potential, that we start believing that over that little voice on the inside, that childhood dream that you had. I wanted to be an artist. I just can't even remember a time where I didn't. Like as a child, I just automatically. And I grew up, went to college, and then I convinced myself, even though I was doing the thing I said I wanted to do, I convinced myself that I was not capable of doing it. And so what we have to do is we've got to be honest about where we are, what we really want. And I think too, you won't identify the thing that you really want because you're afraid you can't have it. Right? So I have to tell on myself over and over, is I used to say that, well, for the longest, I used to say I hated sales. I didn't want to do sales. And so just like everybody else, I said, oh, no, I don't like sales. But then I started selling cosmetics, right? My senior year of college. Started selling cosmetics. I did direct sales over 20 some years for this one company, off and on. And what I found was I went from I don't like sales to being able to literally walk up to a stranger, strike up a conversation, and get all their personal information and make a connection with them so that I could sell them something, right? And then I started. So after I kind of broke through that limitation that I placed on myself. Then I really started to enjoy it. So then I ended up I worked retail, totally by surprise. My son graduated from high school. I went up to Alaska to help my father set up marketing for his company. Ended up staying there longer. I thought, well, shoot, my dad can't. His business isn't in a place where it can afford. He could afford to pay me, so I'll get a job. So that ended up being. That's how I got into luxury retail management. So I started out at Nordstrom, went to Coach, and I loved selling, but I liked interacting with people. I liked developing people. I like providing solutions. I love being a resource. And so that was fun. But then I had a sales job where there were really, really heavy duty sales goals. And I had a sales manager who would come and say, if you close that by the end of the day, you'll get an extra blah, blah, blah. And he's always say, I'm not motivated by money. I'm not motivated like that. And what I realized probably within the last 5-6 months or less, what I realized was what I was really saying was, I hate losing. That's what I was saying. And because I hated losing, if I didn't feel like there was a great likelihood that I could win, then I didn't want to play. I didn't want to step into the arena. And I think many of us are doing that. Are you willing to step into the arena, or have you been making up excuses and comforting yourself just with lies? To be really honest, because I was lying to myself saying, I'm not motivated by money. You can't. It was like I was above. You cannot dangle an incentive in front of me that's going to be big enough for me to jump through hoops. That was my attitude. And the reality was, I didn't want to lose. Like if there's a big, like I'm doing something now, another one of the companies I represent, they are offering like a car, some fancy car, Mercedes or something for free. So, I don't care. But I have to be honest and say the only reason I don't care is because it's too many people involved in this. So the likelihood of me winning is not going to be very much. So I don't even want to do it. If I can't win, I don't want to go. Right. So that's liberating for me to be able to say, look, if I can't win, I'm not going to do it. Rather than to tell myself a lie and everyone around me that, I'm not motivated like that. Like I'm so above it that you can't. I motivate myself. I compete against myself. And that's true. But it's also a lie, because the only reason I wasn't is because I was afraid that I would lose. And so, what are you doing? What's going on in your life? What's the lie you tell yourself, right? What's the lie you tell yourself that keeps you from facing whatever it is you feel like is not where it should be in your life, or where you want it to be? And so let me go back to that phrase, should be, because I am 57, and I feel like, or part of me, I mean, there have been times, put it that way, there have been times when I felt like I should be farther along. Like, right? Like, how is it that I've had this business vision since the 80s and 90s, and I really feel like I'm just stepping into it. And so you can waste a whole bunch of time talking about what you should be doing, where you should be, because how do you know where you should be, right? The vision is yet for an appointed time, and it says it won't be behind a single day, and it says to wait for it. So if the vision is yet for an appointed time and you haven't gotten to it yet, how can you say to yourself that I should be somewhere else? Right? It's a ridiculous notion. It's yet another lie we tell ourselves. And so again, I just want to drive this point home. What would make your life better? And I present to you that the first thing you have to do is honestly answer that question. And you have to understand that you have the ability to do everything, that every idea, every dream, it's possible for you, and that you don't have to be afraid to face it. You don't have to be afraid to you don't have to be afraid of the answer, right? That you really can you can identify it, and you can face it. You don't have to hide from it, and you don't have to comfort yourself with anything other than becoming everything that you were designed to become. Last week we talked about having an assignment. And so if you think about the thing that you desire as an assignment that you are expected to complete, and rather than an opportunity that you get to enjoy, maybe you will face your life a little differently. And I think that's when we start eliminating all the excuses. I think about training. High school, I ran track. I love long distance running, up to a certain distance. I don't know if I'll ever do a marathon, but I do. I have done. I like a 10K. I could hit that and be pretty good. I'd done a 10 miler, and I just was angry with myself by the time I got to the finish line. But so I like long distance more than anything. I will walk and enjoy that, but I really like to run. So I would do these 10-mile runs, and when it was track season, we would come in and do our wind sprints, and we do that 30-minute warm up, and then we go out, we do our intervals, and then we would go and do 10-mile runs through the woods, in the snow, rain or shine, and I was so focused. And so when you are in training, everything in your life is centered around that training and around that end goal that you're preparing for. And so once you identify what problem you were born to solve, once you get a revelation of that one problem, then every area of your life, that really becomes the vision of your life. Every area you can then apply that to, and then you have to make a decision then that you are going to go into training, that you are going to submit yourself to your own training. It's training your inner world, right? I have a whole program and teaching around that. That's one of my books I need to finish. So Oh wait, I got an assignment. I just remembered. Katrina's like, yep, and it's due in such a 2 months, right? But we have to make a decision that we're going to put ourselves into training, and that training is to deal with our own habits, because we have all fallen into a cycle and a rut of of comforting ourselves, self medicating ourselves in some in very unhealthy ways. Like you may have a secret alcohol addiction, you may have a secret drug addiction, but all of those things, you may have a secret food addiction, right? We all have those, like what do they call it? Guilty pleasures. But guilty pleasures are really a trap, because how pleasant is it to lose control of yourself? How pleasant is that? So it's not pleasant. It is destructive. And you have the control over every area of your own life. You really do. And every area of your life really can be better. You don't have to live with any circumstance that's contrary to your own joy, you living out your life with purpose. Oh, yeah, I do have several bestsellers in the work. They're coming. It's coming. It's coming. But yeah, you have the ability to change everything that everything that concerns you. You have the ability, and you have the support, and you have the strength from the inside to do everything that you can imagine. Really, every beautiful thing, all the joy, all the love, all of that, in that you can live like that. That's an abundant life. That's really living, you know. Um, and I talked about actions. There are 3 actions that we need to cultivate. One is appreciating. How many times have you allowed some negative word? How many times have you complained about the situation instead of doing something about it, or instead of looking for the silver lining, looking for the blessing in the middle of the situation? This has been, from March to now, right? We're in a tailspin that we never really could have fully imagined. No matter how many times we heard the people say, people warn that something like this could happen, there's no way for us to understand all of the things, all the dynamics that would be happening all at once, and all of just the complete upheaval of our lives and our livelihoods. And it still boggles my mind, even though we've been in it for a while now. But you still, in the middle of all of this, can find some joy. What happens when there's a huge tragedy? Like we watched the movie about the Boston Marathon bombing, and what happens? We watched there's a movie about the 9/11, the 9/11 crash, the terrorism crashes, and all of that. And so, but what happens to those cities? What happens to people when they go through these horrific tragedies? Oftentimes, the next thing we hear is the stories of how they are triumphing, how they are making a determination that they are not going to be defined by that situation, that they are not going to live in terror, that they make a decision. We are strong. Boston strong, right? So we got to come up with our own slogans, right, to help ourselves really bounce back through any tragedy. I was watching TD Jakes the other day, and he was talking. He said that his I think his assistant had just lost her mother, like the day before, or something like that. And of course, this young woman was grieving over the loss of her mother. And one of the things, this could make me cry. I'm gonna do good. I'm not gonna do it. Gonna breathe. But one of the things that he said was, you should be grateful for from tragedy to triumph. That's right. That you should be, he said that her pain was a privilege. And To some people that could be real disrespectful when you're in the middle of your grieving process and you say, oh, but you have a privilege of being in pain. And what he meant was, you have the privilege of having loved someone enough to hurt that bad when they were gone. So the pain that she was experiencing was coming because she loved so strongly. She loved so well, loved so hard. And so we have to learn. The Bible says how to glory in tribulation, how when it comes, be like, come on, bring it on. And it's not so much that we want terrible things to happen to us, that we want difficulty, but you got to learn in the middle of the difficulty to laugh, to learn how to find joy, how to find strength in the middle of it all. Not because you're not happy that this terrible thing happened to you, but what you do have to know is that without that tragedy, sometimes it's difficult for us to even understand how blessed we are. And so when you can develop the habit of gratitude, you are going to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And you're going to see that in spite of any situation that comes your way, you'll be able to live triumphantly in the middle of it. And that pain is producing strength. What happens when we're developing muscles? I cleaned my house for a few hours. Well, it was a bunch of hours, but I cleaned my house on Sunday, and my entire body has been hurting the whole week. I can't even describe how mind-boggling it is to do some simple activity and have that much pain. But the reality is, obviously, I'm not exercising those muscles. And so when you exercise some muscles and you are getting stronger, it's going to hurt. It's going to. So you got to get to the point where you learn how to deal with the pain, how to to minimize it, but you also learn how to really just find strength and glory and joy in the middle of it all. The next action we need to learn to take is caring. I wrote a book of poetry called The Fine Art of Caring, and I have a whole campaign I created that says, I got t-shirts and everything that says, I'm practicing the fine art of caring. And as I look through, I see all the things going on TV and how people are angry because they can't get out, and now we're trying to throw the kids into school, and we're doing all these things and not really paying attention to each other, not being considerate of each other, people fighting because they don't want to wear masks. It's against their civil liberties, and people, it's just crazy. But what we're doing is we're saying in so many cases that I just don't care. I don't care about anybody else. I only care about myself. But once we learn to practice how to care for other people, put ourselves in their shoes, try to be considerate of what they may be going through, making sure that we are not doing something to be hurtful to other people, and proactively taking care and letting people know that we're there for them, checking in, that kind of stuff. That you can't do that for someone else and still be depressed and isolated yourself. And isolation is, we're all at a greater risk of dying of isolation than we are of the virus in many cases. And so when we learn how to proactively to take the action of caring, to do something intentionally to benefit someone else, we are going to be making our own lives better. We're going to be changing our own outlook, our own situation, our own circumstance. And then the last thing, and I love this, this action, you got to be becoming. And if you don't know the one thing, the one problem you were born to solve, if you don't have a revelation of what that is, it's going to be very difficult for you to be taking specific action towards that becoming everything that you need to be so that you can fulfill that. And really, it is about the journey. It's about how you live every day, what you do, the decisions that you make one at a time. And it's also about not beating up on yourself. Becoming means that you're also going to be making some mistakes, right? So You want to give yourself the opportunity to mess up, to be imperfect. And I've said before that I went to college and compared myself. I was a freshman and never been in a college situation, obviously. I was comparing my work, and this is how I convinced myself that I wasn't talented as an artist. I was comparing my work to graduate students. Ridiculous. But we all do it. We see someone else who is fully developed in our minds in the thing that we want to do. And then we compare where we are to them, and we say, I'm not enough. Oh, ooh, I don't do it like that. I'm not like them. Oh, they're so much better. I should just give it up. And the reality is that you are going to be bad at it when you start. You're going to be terrible. If there's something new, some of us, we're blessed to be talented and gifted, and we can step out and do something. And people will say, oh my gosh, that's great. But you're still terrible at it because you still don't really know what you're doing. You may have some natural gifting, but you still can't be skillful about it because you're new at it. You don't understand. You haven't tried and tested. You haven't been in situations. We can run drills, and drills help us, and we can learn from other people's mistakes, but we still have to actually physically go do something ourselves to really understand. Oh yeah, okay, so that's how that makes sense. Somebody says you do A, B, C, but then you go and you try to do A and you get halfway between that A and B and you realize, but wait, I'm missing something that I need to actually get me to B. Then you get to B and you realize, well, we had this unique circumstance happen. Now I got to take a detour and do something else, and then I can get to C. But you won't know that. You won't know what potential pitfalls that you might run into until you actually go do something. Just because somebody else did it this way doesn't mean it's actually going to work exactly that way for you. And just because you did it the last time this way and it worked doesn't mean it's going to work again. And what we do is we want to get some success, and then we just want to keep repeating that success over and over again without any effort, without any energy, no change, no opposition. But that's not really how life is. And so becoming is about facing opposition and just coming out stronger and learning more. I feel like now I do feel like I'm just getting started, but at the same time, I've been in the game long enough. Now I feel like you really can't throw too much at me that I can't handle. And I may not like how things turn out or whatever, but the reality is I'm like, no, I've been here before. I've done so many things. Like, what is it? David said, I've slain the lion and the bear, and now I know I can take this giant. And so I want you to ask yourself, what would make your life better? And I think the next question you might want to ask yourself is, what giant do you need to face? And the giant may be something that you made up in your own mind and heart, but you know what? That doesn't make it any less a giant because you believe it is. So until you decide to face it and face it squarely in the face and be honest with yourself to identify it, it'll continue to overtake you, and you'll live unnecessarily without the joy that you deserve. So that's all I got tonight. And to love and to be loved so deeply that the pain is agonizing, that is a privilege and a blessing. It is, Katrina. That the pain is agonizing. But again, the only reason that you're in that condition is because you have had an opportunity. So you want to learn, we want to be appreciating, we want to be caring, and we want to be becoming. And that will keep us from being stagnant. And I'll end with this. The one thing that I love to say, and I got a meme about it, but it says I say, you'll know you are growing when your dream to have transforms into a vision to become. So oftentimes we are lusting for things. I want a new car, I need a new house, I want even a child, or a husband, or a wife, or, I want these external things so that I can feel better about myself. When in reality, what we need to do is get a revelation of who we are to become. and give our time and our energy and our strength to working on that, and throw ourselves into training and be willing to go through the pain that it takes just to face ourselves on the inside. And then the stuff on the outside, if it's not irrelevant, it's not, and it no longer has power over you. And that's where we want to live. I want to thank you for joining me. And remember that we are here every week, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. And remember to follow at Gwen Fuchsius. Let me see, trying to get my social media graphic back up. There it is. We want to follow at Gwen Fuchsius on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope, and Gwen Witherspoon Coach on YouTube. And then you can visit gwenwitherspoon.com to get all information, to watch the replays, to get links to all the channels if you didn't get the names of all the accounts. And we will see you next week.